our nations. We can't even defend our own Muslims. We can't even feed our own people. And you're proud of where you're from? Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he took over Mecca, I believe, he stamped his foot. He said, nationalism is under my foot.
I think we Muslims are in a collective state of psychosis because we're proud to belong to a country that was a map drawn by the non-Muslims 40, 50 years ago. How insane is that? Maps drawn on the line. Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, lines drawn on maps by the French, by the Italians, by the British, dividing us up into nations. And now we are screaming fanatically, rallying behind some flag that didn't even exist 100 years ago, ready to fight for it and die for it. This is madness. This is sickness. This is something so far removed from what Allah revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whoever calls for as-sabiyya and whoever fights for as-sabiyya, then they call and they fight and they die the death of jahiliyyah. They die and they fight and they call for the death of ignorance, the time of ignorance. In the Quran, Allah likened those people who divide the religion into sects and into groups. He likened them to the mushriks. And indeed it is one of the quality and the sifat and the attributes of disbelievers.
The Prophet ﷺ said, nationalism is rotten, leave it. Nationalism is rotten, leave it. It is absolutely forbidden. Asabiyya is something that is a coal from the coals of the hellfire, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. So we as Muslims, we don't partake in this. We don't partake in any of this nationalism, tribalism, racism. As for the punishment, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said it's a coal from the coals of hellfire. Meaning you call to this, you will enter the hellfire.
Oh Muslims, if we come back to Allah, come back to our senses, come back to the discipline, come back to the Quran, come back to the Sunnah, when we know this man well, the one that we say, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Habibina Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we come back to that, Allah will give us success. Oh Muslims, as long as you keep on following behind your culture, your color, your nation, your flags, you are just like a beetle on a piece of dung. So a fly or a beetle flying around some dung is the Muslims flying around their culture, their flag. And that's why you can't have no unity, and you're not going to respect no leaders, and you can't get no justice, and you don't have no dignity. Allah took the ird from us. We don't have no brotherhood, and we don't have no power. Why? Because we lost ourselves, we lost our identity. Our identity is وَسَمَاءُكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. We are Muslims, that's enough. Oh Muslims, come back to Islam, come back to the Quran, come back to the Sunnah. This is good enough for us. Form your communities, for your families, for your dignity, for your protection, and select a leader whom you will respect and follow. If you don't do that, you invite to yourself continuous embarrassment. You invite to yourself failure. You invite to yourself punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you invite for yourself humiliation from the kuffar.